so often we just tend to think about human-centeredness, right? And we're like at the center of everything. And then I think when you live in an environment that is as harsh as the Sonoran Desert can be, you understand like just how incredible these plants are and how lucky we are to have them, and so how much of a responsibility is to steward them. And you also understand like how lucky we are to have the animals. Like how cool are these animals that they can not only survive but thrive in this environment. And so that also makes you want to learn more about them and take care of them so that we can continue to enjoy them for a really long time. Hi, my name is Grace Saavedra. I started at Las Milpitas as a gardener actually in 2020. I had just moved to Tucson 2 months before the pandemic broke out, which was terrible timing. And I actually started a job at the Desert Museum, and the department that I worked with was education. And my first week there, we had this conference about the Tucson Bee Collective, which is a really cool local organization, and they do samples of bees from here. So I just came, and people were like extraordinarily nice. It was two staff members who were here, and they were just like genuinely really happy to see people and tell people about the work they do here. And so I became a gardener, and then after being a gardener, I was a contractor, and then I started actually working for the food bank. It was 5, 6 years ago. And my job now is I work with the folks on the north end of the farm. So we do community plots. So it's individuals, families, small groups, and they get a 4 by 20 foot plot where they can grow their own food. That's the one kind of big aspect of my job. And then the other part is sort of that community outreach. So we do a lot of work with partners. If you know anything about the history of Tucson, we're a UNESCO City of Gastronomy, and the whole reason why we have that designation is because of the over 4,000 years of agriculture that's been practiced on these lands. So this was kind of where everything happened, right along the banks of the Santa Cruz River. And so what is currently Las Milpitas Farm had been lots of different things throughout the years. I know at some point there was a Chinese family that had a pharmacy, and so they would grow like the plant medicine, the herbs and things for their pharmacy here. But then many years it was just kind of like an abandoned lot. And so that's when City High stepped in. So in about 2011, City High School decided that they wanted to start a program, like a gardening program for their students. And 6 acres is what the farm is. And it was too much for one school to take on. So they actually approached a food bank. And the food bank is obviously known for emergency food boxes. But by the time somebody gets to the point of needing an emergency food box, that's already at the tail end, right? And so the food bank thought, well, why don't we start addressing some of the root causes? Like, how do we end up at the point where we need emergency food boxes? Mm-hmm. And so they agreed to kind of partner on this space. And the biggest thing was it was an area that was lower income. It was an area that maybe on paper had higher crime levels. But what would end up happening a lot of times is somebody new would move into the space and then no outreach of any sort, right? And so when in 2011, this idea of like, okay, well, let's start making this happen came about, they really did a really pretty fantastic job of making sure that everybody who lives around here, ultimately, this is going to be your space, your home. It's going to directly affect you all. And so we want y'all to feel like you're part of this. And so they literally did canvassing of door to door. They did a number of visioning sessions, focus groups, brought people in here. They had lots of conversations about, what do you all want to see? What do you want this space to be? And so people talked, people, wanted green spaces. People wanted spaces to hang out with families. People wanted to be able to grow their own food. People wanted to see wildlife. And so little by little, the idea came about of what this place could be. And so they partnered at the time with the Drachman Institute, and there was a graduate student there who helped put those ideas into a plan of what the space could be. There's no way that you can talk about agriculture in this region without acknowledging folks like the Donatum, like the Pascoyaki, because ultimately, who would think that in this weather you could grow anything? And then when you take a look around the farm, you grow so many things with just that knowledge that really was eventually handed down. So food and land sovereignty is the basis of what's being done, because unfortunately, food is a basic human right. It should go without saying that every human being should have enough food, and more than enough, right? We want to thrive. We don't want to just survive. Unfortunately, we live in a system where it's weaponized, like so many other things that should never be weaponized. And so the ability to grow your own food, the ability to take control of that aspect of it, and it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be fully self-sufficient, but even just like growing your own herbs, you have a completely different relationship that then comes up with the land that you're on. And we're very conscious of the fact that this is not land that we own. Land ownership is a concept that we don't agree with. Nobody should own land. We're all stewards of the land, right? And so understanding as well that this is land that was taken away, and what is our role in that? What is our responsibility in that? And so definitely that education piece comes into play. It's more than a question of just acknowledging, but what else are we going to do to make sure that all of our gardeners are aware of these histories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We don't want to whitewash anything. We also are deeply aware again of the fact that the way you grow here is so different. Gardening at night is great, or gardening, at 4 a.m. is fantastic. Like, we dig things, so we sink things down into, we do berms and swales, and we make little pits because we want to make sure to capture all that water when the rain does fall. And so thinking of all those things, and then also, what are we growing? We know that there's things like tepary beans that have been grown forever and a day by the autumn here. We know that there's, the yellow flesh watermelon. And those are all things that grow well, because even though these crops just in general take up more water, but they do very well in these conditions. We know that as much as we want big, juicy tomatoes, they're not going to do well. Can we grow them? Sure, we can probably grow them, but it requires a lot of more work and a lot more manipulation of things. And we're trying to break it down so that gardening is accessible to folks. We don't want folks to think, all right, well, I'm going to have to be doing math. I'm going to have to keep journals to try to figure this out, and it's going to be a huge thing. We want to break it down to things that, like, what's the path of least resistance? Let's get you to grow those things. And then you also appreciate the beauty of, like, when things are in season, which is how we should be eating as well. So keeping in mind all those sort of different aspects of it. So we have so many different cultures, and that's part of what makes this city so fantastic. And we're so fortunate to have that diversity. And so that also is reflected in what we grow. Grow things that are going to feed you, grow things that make sense for your family's diet, whatever that may be. And then that's also part of that sovereignty as well over our food, right? Because we got to decide what we're going to eat. And nutrition looks many different ways. What I love about it, just gardening in general, but I think the gardening here, I think we have my coworker, Chris, who is the one who manages the physical operations of the farm, and he's the farmer. He really has been very thoughtful about, the intercropping. So we have the native plants mixed in with our flowers, mixed in with our herbs, and mixed in with veggies, and a little bit of everything put together there. When you let nature do her thing, she does it perfectly. She does it beautifully. And we're living at a time when our temperature is changing. Our winter months are getting shorter. It's getting hotter. And so you really have to build relationships. It's not just here, follow these steps and you'll grow. We want you to come. We want you to observe. We want you to learn from the plants. And there are no shortcuts. Like, do that little bit and you're rewarded by so much more here. When you have, folks who are around the neighborhood associating with folks that maybe they don't have in their life, that maybe are outside of their social circle, but they come together in this spot and they get to know each other. That's how you create that diversity and that inclusiveness. That is the really cool thing about this spot, about having all those different types of people. And then when you feel at home, you automatically want to bring your people here and your friends. There is a lot of trust that's needed in community. If you don't have that ability to know who's here, that engagement with other people, then very easily we could have situations of, like, people taking things. When people feel that ownership of the space, automatic, you're like, well, this is my house, so I want to make sure I take care of it, and I want to make sure that whoever I bring in here also respects this space. But again, there's no shortcuts. There's no real quick and easy way to do it, and community sets that tone. Everybody is doing such a beautiful job of just being kind and just being welcoming, and it shows. For us, it's extremely important to provide a space where folks can have access to food, because for so long it's been seen as some kind of personal deficiency, whether we don't have money, or if we don't have food, or if we don't have a car, or if we don't have like, it's seen as something that you're doing wrong. Then that's used to justify a lot of the things that are happening right now, like SNAP benefits being taken from folks, right? I mean, ideally Like our dream would be that there's a bunch of milpitas everywhere, because it's a wonderful opportunity. And what we're able to also do right now is when we have any plots that haven't been claimed by somebody, we still plant it out because we want to have a community plot. We also have like a community garden area. We want school kids to come in here and understand, like, your food doesn't come in a styrofoam package from Walmart. It comes from the land. Each and every one of us has something to teach, something to learn. And that's what is the beauty of this space. We also hope that it's a place where we can get you to rethink some of those ideas. So farm work is something that in this country, like, we're also indebted to farm workers. We wouldn't be anything and we wouldn't have any food without them. And yet we treat them so poorly. And so to understand that this is work that is highly skilled, it's incredibly difficult, can be incredibly difficult. It's a beautiful thing to be able to work the land. So yeah, we just hope folks are able to understand the history of the space and what's brought us to this space, who we have to thank for that knowledge, as was mentioned, and then they take that and make it their own. You can't have a place that's sustainable if you're not doing a multi-generational thing. And it's how we used to, like, we understand that that's how life was, right? We had the grandparents, we had your tios and tias, we had the cousins, we had the littles, we had everybody. And every time we're more siloed. And so now you have like restaurants where children are excluded. They need to have that extended social circle, and we need to have them in social spaces. Same thing with grandparents. Grandparents, we so often don't treat them the way they deserve. And the end of their life, which should be the time to rest and the time to enjoy the last years that they have, often become years of really hard work or a lot of pain or being tossed aside. And so to understand that there's so much wisdom that can be there, there's so much we can learn from them. So you have to have those spaces. And it is really beautiful to see all that coming together. And we hope Milpitas stays open forever. In order for that to happen, like at this point, like my knees are shot. So I need the next person with, nice, young, healthy knees to come in to be like, okay, cool, I can do this bit. And then I'll teach the next person to do this bit. And then that's how we keep this space alive. So yeah, absolutely important to do that.
To this day, Las Milpitas Farm provides food, knowledge, and a sense of community to the people of Tucson. They encourage people of all ages to come and learn about how to grow sustainably in the Sonoran Desert, while also navigating the harsh conditions that plants endure on a day-to-day basis. Las Milpitas hopes to continue growing and to reach more community members so that they too can join the farm.